All right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are listening into this HFS webinar. Um, Welcome. My name is Saurabh Gupta. I'm the President and Chief Research Officer here at HFS. And I think I'm talking about one of my favorite subjects today, which is food and food services, and how COVID-19 and this pandemic has impacted the food services industry, and how surprisingly fast the food services industry has ruthlessly adapted to the changes and come out very strong. I'm joined today by a fantastic panel, and I'd like them to introduce themselves to you. Maybe we'll start with you, Sam.
Well, good day, everyone. I am super excited to be here today with you. My name is Sam Stanovich, and I am the Vice President of Membership and Alliances for the IFBTA, which is the International Food Beverage Technology Association. In addition, I own restaurants and am a very active member of the restaurant and hospitality community. And I am thrilled to be here with the teams to talk about post-pandemic and how we're going to thrive, take the lessons that we've learned, and pivot to move forward quicker, faster, and sharper than ever before. So thank you very much. I appreciate you having me here today.
Thanks, Sam. Sandeep?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Sandeep Bhasin. I head the Retail, Consumer Goods, and Hospitality Division for Cognizant Digital Operations. Excited and thrilled, like Sam, being in this industry for a while. I want to share the learnings we've had. I want to share what we've seen in the industry happen. So looking forward to the discussion today.
Thanks, Sandeep. And my partner in crime, Melissa.
Yes, hi, good morning, everyone. Melissa O'Brien here. I'm Research Vice President at HFS, and part of my industry coverage includes retail, CPG, and hospitality. So I've been looking at this area of food services very keenly with Cognizant and some of their clients, and Sam, some of the folks we're going to speak with today. So really excited to share some of that research as well.
Awesome. So look, I think we want to make this interactive, and there is any time that you have a question, please feel free to ask that question. There is this Q&A tab. Just write down your questions, and we'll either take them through as we're having the discussion, or we'll reserve at least 5 to 10 minutes at the end to take all your questions. So please feel free to write in any questions that you might have, and we want to make this as interactive as possible. So what are we going to cover today? I wanted to start with just sharing what we are seeing here at HFS is this emergence of a hyper-connected ecosystem as we emerge out of this pandemic, right? Different industries have been impacted differently, but we are seeing this ecosystem approach starting to emerge, and the food services industry has been at the center of that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that, but then really spend a meat of the discussion talking to the experts here, Sam, Sandeep, and Melissa. What have they experienced? What have been some of the wounds that they've had, but how they've come through, and what does the future hold for us, right? And as we go through it, we'd love to hear some practical experiences from Sam. We'd love to hear what Sandeep is doing and his team is doing to help support their clients, and what HFS has been learning through the research in this space. And then last but not least, we want to hear from you, everybody who's dialed in and listening in. Ask your questions, and we'll have our panel try and answer them, no matter how difficult the questions are. So with that, I think this pandemic was very interesting in a way that it impacted different industries differently. There wasn't a secular impact like when we've had recessions or when we've had major economic disruptions in the past. There was a secular trend, but this was different largely because it was very different for different industries. And this chart sort of summarizes that. We reached out to about 150 C-level executives across different industries. And you look at the industries like healthcare, BFS, life sciences, they actually have got a boost from the pandemic in terms of driving more innovation. uh, the healthcare and the life sciences, look at what we've done in terms of we've created vaccines in 12 months. It's nothing short of a miracle. uh, and then there are certain industries that have been adversely impacted, right? Look at industrial manufacturing, look at travel, hospitality, CPG, retail, and restaurants, right? They were, if you were to talk to some of these industries, they were practically on the verge of being wiped off 12 to 18 months back, because we had never seen such a thing, right? Not just from an employment perspective, but also from an employer perspective. And you look at food services, that's at the center of the storm. Food services comprises of CPG, retail, restaurants, logistics, and all those industries were hugely impacted by the pandemic. Uh, However, what we saw over the last 12 months was what I've been calling adaptation, ruthless adaptation, in a very short span of time. Where digital is now almost horizon one. Digital is now, you've got to be digital, even if you're a restaurant. I think Sam is at a ghost kitchen conference right now in, in Dallas, right? Wherein these are all digital restaurants, right? And that's horizon one. I think, but Horizon One still talks about functional innovation, right? Horizon One still talks about how do I take care of one process or one area. I think very, very quickly moving to how do we become a cloud native organization, or how do we become a digital native organization. And the scope of innovation is expanding from just a function to the entire organization, which is what at HFS we call the one office, right? This whole concept of here's my front office, here's my back office, and they don't talk to each other, that doesn't apply anymore, right? You've got to look at the entire end-to-end process. You've got to look at the entire enterprise, and how are you going to go to market from that perspective. And then I think what's starting to emerge is that the industry lines are blurring as well. And we are starting to see that if you want to impact the experience of the end customer, then there is no one organization, no matter how mature or how digitally savvy they are, who can really impact the end consumer experience. And we are starting to see industries come together. Even the industry lines are starting to blur, and these ecosystems are starting to get created. New technologies are starting to come into play, right? You look at what the promise of 5G or blockchain or even quantum computing, right? Those are no longer science fiction, but the Horizon 1, 2, and 3 are happening at the same time, and never before has that happened in our lifetimes. We are seeing a huge impetus on digital. We are seeing a huge impetus on cloud native or digital native organizations, and we are seeing the ecosystems also starting to get formed. And there's no better example than what we are going to talk about today. What is food services? And I think food services is this ecosystem which is at the sweet spot of intersection between logistics, CPG, retail, and hospitality, right? I think this simple Venn diagram, the center of that is food services. What we consume and what we eat, either at home or in a restaurant, comes through this very complicated ecosystem. And you can even add agriculture and whatnot to this, right? uh, the food on your plate comes through a hugely complicated supply chain. And all these industry stakeholders are involved in that. And all these industry stakeholders need to come together, to become more resilient. And we've started to see that happen. So with that, let me start bringing in my panelists, and I'll probably start with you, Sam. And you've been a restaurant, you've been into this industry for a very long time. How have you seen the customer behavior change, through this pandemic shock?
It was a shock for everyone. We look back March of 2020, and there was scramble was on, right? Everybody was buying toilet paper. They were clearing the shelves. Everybody was hunkering down for what was going to be a long storm. And what we quickly found was that once people got through that initial supply of food, they wanted to return to restaurants. But they weren't returning to dine in, they were returning to off premises. And as an industry, the big pivot was on. How did we organize and find all the bumps in our technology to ensure a seamless order? How did we try pop-up drive-through, immediately going to curbside? But what we knew was that consumers wanted that comfort of food. And that's one thing that bonds everyone together, is that need for a meal. And after exhausting cooking in your home, people wanted to return to the normalcy, or that little bit of normalcy that they could get with takeout, and bring that comfort back to the table for the conversation. So we learned a lot real quick, right? And again, as I talked about technology, we learned where the bumps in the roads were. We looked for new technologies that we could implement fast and quick to try to increase the customer interaction. What we also learned, and we're going to talk about, is the return of phone, and why phone was so important, and why customers started calling was because they wanted that outside world communication, right? They wanted that touch point. They wanted that service. They wanted to talk to somebody outside of their four walls. So what we also saw was, during those phone calls, an increase in time that it took to order, because there was more of a conversation that occurred. We also saw a pivot in packaging, how we prepared things, put it in the package, how we secured it for safety, new cleaning and safety protocols throughout the industry. Things, again, the hospitality industry has some of the safest, cleanest folks in the world because of all the additional requirements and training that occur on, and then how we took it again to that next level, how we increased it, how we made it more visual so our customers could see it, and then how we got more into delivery. Once the initial 6 to 8 weeks kind of worked its way through, we saw a return to delivery, and then we saw the shift in behaviors, right? Epicenters of business were at home, right? Everybody was at home. How do we get food there? Restaurants were moving to mobile delivery, mobile packaging. Group meals became huge. When we talked to my friends at Google, it was all about group ordering or family meals, and what those looked like, and whether they were fully prepared or partially prepared. So that was a lot of what occurred, and it was all at the speed of light. I've never seen my friends in the hospitality industry move as quickly as they did during that March to June to summer timeframe. And the final thought before I turn it back to you is, this industry has always been collaborative, but never to the point that we've seen it in the last 18 months. Collaboration has been key. People have taken the competitive hats off, although we're all very competitive, but we have shared more than ever now as an industry together to help everybody succeed. So we're taking the second largest private employer, which is the hospitality industry, according to research from the National Restaurant Association, and how do we maximize that? And it's thrilling. As you mentioned, I'm down here at a Ghost Kitchen conference, 325 people doing nothing but collaborating and looking for the future. And we're not hearing it's going to take us 2 to 3 years to deploy something. We're looking at, what is it, how does it do, and how can we impact our business today? So it's a great time to be in the industry. It's thrilling, and there's so much opportunity.
Yeah, no, thanks, Sam. I think it is thrilling. We've not seen these kind of innovations. I never even imagined that those things would happen, but they have. Melissa, is this the new normal? Are we going to go back? Where are we?
Yeah, just to underscore this point about the opportunity, if you can share that. Yeah, this data point. It's definitely a new normal. I think just hearing Sam's comments validates what I've been observing in the industry. What you see here is our sort of food services subsection of industry, and in one of our many reports that we run about understanding how people coped with and are coping with and are moving forward through the pandemic. So I wanted to share this particular data point. Is no surprise that only 6% actually expect business to really bounce back to normal. And then you've got about a fifth that say they need a completely new strategy. Another fifth are changing their business priorities, and a quarter maybe aren't necessarily changing strategy, but they're completely rethinking operations. And so obviously this is the result of the massive disruption and the hundreds of thousands of closures and loss of sales as a result of last year, and the pivot to off-premise that Sam put a fine point on. I've also been looking at the National Restaurant Association numbers, and it seems that restaurants that closed, a lot of them that closed, were actually well-established businesses that had been in operation for 16 plus years, I think was the average number that they looked at. And so there's this kind of there's a line of demarcation between those that pivoted and, wanted to move on, and some folks, weren't able to make that pivot and to change. Some of them didn't want to. I mean, my favorite local restaurant here that we used to walk to once a week, they said, hey, we had a great run. This isn't for us. We're not going to pivot. So, but I think what this means for the industry overall and the opportunity is these businesses that have been through the last year, they've been through the constantly changing rules and regulations. They've, pivoted to curbside pickup, to, off-premise, that when they had none prior. For those that remain, or for new restaurants opening up now, because we're seeing quite a bit of that, is this sort of whole new world, of opportunity. So that's what we're going to dive in on with our specialists today.
Yeah, no, thanks, Melissa. Turning to you, Sandeep, you've been championing this term called food services, right? For some time now, instead of calling them restaurants or CPG or hospitality, or how most people refer to these industries. So talk to us a little bit about your thought process, one, and then secondly, you deal with a lot of clients across these industries. What did you see as some of the challenges that came across in dealing with your clients?
Yeah, so I'll touch on the challenge on restaurant just in a minute, but let me hit your first question first, right? This term food service and this blurring of the industry lines, right? Truly happening today, right? Think of it, the hyper-connected ecosystem is not more evident than any other space in this, in my opinion. Is if you look at it, just go back a year and a half, we were looking at the news channels and headlines of major burger chains running out of beef in New York. It's a New York Times headline, right? We had grocery stores running out of product on their shelves, right? That was all over the news at that time. And then there was a news on production of food happening in parts of the country and shortage at the same time in another part of the country. So if you come to think of it, this, what we term, some companies and organizations, we group them in retail, or we put them in CPG, and then we'll put distributors somewhere else. They are so interconnected. The restaurants are dependent on distribution companies to get their products and the ingredients in place. You and I can't get our favorite dish if the truck driver, who's an essential worker, is unable to perform his duty, right? So it is just such a hyper-connected ecosystem that is coming. And I think the whole pandemic exposed how these companies are and the ecosystem is interdependent on each other, and how overall our economy is dependent on this, right? I would be amiss if I don't mention or acknowledge what the essential workers have done within this segment, Saurabh. It's just hats off to them. We at Cognizant are honored, humbled, and fortunate to have supported those who have been just at the front lines within these industry segments, whether they are people in the grocery stores or the distributors or even the manufacturer and CPG companies that have done this, and even delivery companies. So I think just to your first part of your question, I think the human spirit has prevailed as we come out of this pandemic, just being able to acknowledge what people have done, adapted to the change, learned, and contributed to society in general is phenomenal. Now let me hit your second question. What are general themes or challenges that we have seen? And I'm trying to make this a little real for us, right? We've spoken about this a little bit. 80% of restaurant industry growth that we are expecting by 2025 is going to come from off-premise dining, right? That's the truth. It's here to stay. Melissa shared the research of what people feel, and this is the projection. It's just here to stay. Now let's just, if you want to go one slide forward, so if you don't mind for sharing. Now, what are the challenges that companies and leaders within our clients that I personally can say we saw was business leaders are now looking at rising costs and off-premise dining, right? And what's the value that we can bring in through off-premise dining with the reducing labor cost in the stores? Customer leaders are looking for how do we make consistent experience? And I'm going to take a minute to talk about this. A lot of effort pre-pandemic was spent on driving digital through online ordering platforms, through managing menu management, making sure that restaurants and businesses had an online ordering capability that was seen as digital in restaurant. Now, off late, I've been having these conversations with our clients where they say, hey, when our clients go to an online ordering platform, they have the ability to see their last 6 orders. They have the ability to see what are the new launch in the menu, what they have the ability to see what are the new offerings, what are the new coupons, what are the promotions. But when I place the order through a different channel, nobody tells me about it, right? It's not the same experience. The experience is to get off the phone and move on. And I'm going to go to the Sam's point. There is a urge for a customer to understand what you're going to offer, irrespective of the channel they are on, whether they are on an online ordering platform or they place a phone or they're chatting to place an order. They want to know what you have to offer. And I don't think the industry invested enough on that side of the business. Then let's come to the technology leaders. Technology leaders started thinking towards how do we enable this? So think of large restaurant chains. And they started thinking towards, can I actually tap into 25, 30% of phone orders that I take today and understand what the customers are ordering? What is that experience? Well, how long do they have to wait? What is the hold times? What is the number of times calls get abandoned? And the reality is, during true pandemic times, when restaurants had like 5 lines, they were scrambling to get more lines in the outlets so that they can take the orders during peak time. And customers had to wait a long time to place those orders. So these are all challenges that I've been hearing from our clients. I'm sure everybody in the industry has seen this, the frustration associated with it in the store. And I know Sam's nodding his head, so he can talk straight through about the employee frustration around in the store with the ordering mechanism that we have today.
Well, and I think you bring up a great point, and this slide really hits it home. You know, you're challenged with increased labor. You have the inconsistent experience across platform, right? And then the processes. And when the pandemic hit, everybody scaled down because they didn't know, there was no predictability anymore of how much business was going to come in, what time business was going to come in. So if you were primarily a lunch business, it may have been flipped to a dinner business. And then all of a sudden, you've got all the third parties firing off. So now you've got your tablets firing, your online ordering firing, you've got your telephone firing, and everybody's going, okay, what do I do first, right? So now how do we systematically put in a process to handle it and give that experience? And that off-premises experience is so key now, because although we are seeing the return and the resurgence and the love back to restaurants, and I know as an operator and association guy, I'm over the top, right? So I'm extreme to one side. I want to eat out breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week. But you're still going to have, and we're still hearing it, and I'm based in Chicago, you're still going to have the people who are still skeptical, right? They don't trust what's going on, so they're going to want to continue to be the opposite. They still want the food, but I don't see them dining in the restaurant yet. They're just not comfortable. So we have to create the happy balance. And how do we create the happy balance? I think there's technology. And again, we have the conversation of what did people rush into last year versus what they really need and how does it intersect. So you bring up some really good points. And I think this slide is just a home run. So as the folks who are on the line today thinking about their business, these are 3 great buckets as they're looking at their strategic development that they should be thinking about and really going through that exercise.
Yeah, Melissa, talk to us about, so on one hand, what Sam and Sandeep just said, there were all these challenges of how do we deal with it, right? And you had sudden demand drop in one way, but on the other hand, you had to suddenly accelerate your digital transformation, right? And we are not dealing with, especially in the restaurant industry, we're not dealing with, huge organizations. These are, a lot of them are small, fragmented, small SMB segment, largely. So how do you balance that, right? Of doing a lot more with a lot little?
Yeah, the answer is, and I'm glad that you pulled up this data point, because I think these things work together in tandem. So when asked about sort of the top initiatives for surviving and thriving post-pandemic, what you see here is CPG, retail, and THL, travel, hospitality, and logistics, listed across on the right, and on the left we have what we call food services, which is a proxy for the discussion that we're having today, the interconnection of this ecosystem. And not surprisingly, they said we need to accelerate our digital modernization efforts, but we also need to hunker down and save costs. So these things are actually they're tied together. So Sam and Sandeep, you guys listed off a couple of great examples as far as the adaptation that had to happen, where the model was just flipped on its head, where the majority of dining was on premise and now it's off premise. So seasonality has always been something that restaurants have dealt with, and the fluctuations of, when people are coming in and what they're going to order. But now there's just this even more wild unpredictability that comes with it. And I was surprised to hear, Sam, you mentioned this early on in your comments about just the dependency on phone orders. But I interviewed a pizza chain recently, a large one, and they said that there's just these huge pockets of the demographics that are still 100% only ordering by phone, even if you have all of these digital channels and platforms and ordering platforms. So, making these digital solutions available to people, user-friendly, trying to increase adoption so that you can reduce that reliance on labor does both things. If you do that well, it's a win-win for the customer experience as well as for cost containment. And then the other thing I would mention, around the lines of technology is what can be done from a predictive analytics standpoint. Another interview that I had with someone from a QSR was talking about just sort of the shifts that they see, and people just don't order this particular type of food when it's really nice out. They're only ordering it when it's a rainy day or a bad day. So those types of things, how can you actually, I'm not saying necessarily just weather, but what are the other elements that impact ordering behavior that you can put in place to predict demand, to staff accordingly, to make sure you're not overstaffed, contain costs. And if you put these two elements together, what we're seeing here is the top priorities, you actually get that, you achieve that kind of dual aim of digitizing your processes while reducing cost.
Yeah, no, I think we've talked a lot about both customer experience and employee experience, and both were changed. And I think there's a very interesting question that one of the people who's listening in has posted, which is the supply chain impact that this had. And the question is, you guys discussed toilet paper and food shortages caused by the pandemic, and over the years we've tried to optimize operations, including supply chain, to reduce expenses and improve profitability. Right? That's what the role of supply chain was, is to drive bottom line impact. How do you think this last year's experience will impact supply chain optimization efforts going forward?
Well, I think everybody had the same experience, right? The fear of the unknown. So as restaurants shut down, supply chain shut down, you move things, because with food, so much of the supply chain is fresh. So the shelf life is not forever. So there were a lot of learnings that came with that, and nobody had a crystal ball, right? And then you move into the labor shortage. Well, the labor shortage really pivoted, and there's a U.S. Department of Labor statistic that came out yesterday, and I'm trying to verify it. But there's been a lot of discussion that the extra unemployment is the key to the labor shortage. Well, there's 21 states that reduced that credit, and they're not seeing the increase of return to work. And what the Department of Labor is saying is that those folks have shifted, and they've gone to new jobs in new industries, such as warehousing or delivery or something else that were in the hospitality vertical. And I think everybody, including supply chain, is very focused. Nobody had the crystal ball, so you didn't know how much to produce. And I don't think anybody knew that there was going to be such a run on toilet paper and steak last year. So it's really one of those things that we've learned. I think we've been able to manage, and I think cooler heads have prevailed now, and the experience that we've gone through has taught us a lot.
Yeah. So I think let's talk about, we've talked about challenges, and I think we can talk about challenges for the next 24 hours, but let's talk about solutions also.
Yes.
And maybe Sandeep, I'll ask you, because people look at Cognizant as a solution provider, right? Not a challenge identifier. So what is it that you're recommending and offering, and how are you advising clients who are dealing with these huge shocks to demand supply patterns?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for that question, Saurabh. So let me just start with, this is one area, food service in general, and whether it is manufacturers, restaurants, absolutely the focus for us has been the focus for us, but restaurants, distribution, this is one area that we have consciously invested over the 4-5 years. And so we were lucky to be in this space, to have contributed to our clients during this time. And I'll share with you what we invested, but at the same time, what we generally that we offer is hey, we will manage the order management. We do point of sale support kind of activities. We do distribution management. We do customer care. All these services is what we offer our clients. But let's focus on digital restaurant order management for a second. In the industry, generally, you would see players who would offer a global delivery model, cost efficiency, overcome your talent problems. That's one part of the solution here. Our philosophy has been to put an integrated solution that can drive an advantage for our clients. that help them pivot quickly in situations, that help them take more educated decisions. So our solution essentially is, look at what you're seeing on your screen is a layered cake, if I may say so, right? So you've got a global delivery model that's available. So of course we do this out of the US and everywhere else in the world, but we offer platforms and partnerships where our clients don't necessarily have to worry about getting new technology and licenses and upfront investments. We get in and get introduced cloud-based platforms that allow managing of the orders. We've over time, since we made those investments, have built reusable bots which can come into play and accelerate the operations. We've embedded analytics because data is critical. We've talked about challenges so much. Knowing your customer is the key at this point in time. And there's a lot of discussion about who owns the customer, the app on which the order is being made, or the restaurant operator and the restaurant brands that owns the customer. And that data is so valuable and underutilized right now in the industry. So that analytics that we've built together gives visibility to our restaurant clients to look at orders across their thousands of outlets across North America or the globe, where they can sit at one location and say, hey, listen, out of all these 1,500 different outlets on Halloween, these are the 7 that are doing exceedingly better, or these are the and I don't want to give away the names here, but these are the pizzas that are selling the most today versus yesterday, or this is the product innovation that we did is doing better. It's each one of these layer A to F that you see on the screen has that benefit. One more thing that everybody in the restaurant industry would appreciate is large chains. I think somebody said it's small and medium business, right? So large chains are made out of franchisees, right? So 70, 80% of outlets are owned sometimes by the franchisee than corporate stores. Being modular is very important to the industry. They want to see price per order. They don't want to invest in thousands of people who sit there, right? So they want to see price per order, price per call. And so we have centralized order management for a number of our restaurant clients, where we've taken that work out of the restaurants. We've brought in domain analytics to do cross-sell and upsell on each order that is placed. We have reduced the cost of taking that order because it is centralized. We have reduced time of taking that order, or rather wait time for the customers on the phone tremendously. So I think that's something that's worked tremendously well. This is an offering that's is catching up in the market real quick. There's a problem that we've identified, and we're able to put that together.
I think this addresses several challenges, Sandeep, from a delivery perspective, pricing perspective, data analytics perspective, process perspective. The one thing that I also wanted to ask and understand, and perhaps Sam, if you don't mind talking to us a little bit about, is how do people suddenly become digitally fluent, right? This is all new, right? And this is now digital transformation for restaurants and for this industry was something, yeah, we'll do it, right? And now it's sort of essential for survival. And to be able to deal with technologists like Sandeep, you need to be able to talk that language, right? Be more savvy, be more digitally savvy. How do you think the industry has adapted to suddenly this need to become so digitally savvy?
Because, and that's a great question. And the answer is, it's no longer a nice to have, but a have to have. So the hand was forced last year, right? the operator who, let's say the majority of them in decision-making roles are Generation X and older, right? So they're not true technologists at heart. They didn't grow up with a cell phone in their hand. We think back, even at my age, of a Commodore 64, and we were all excited about running colors on the screen. And now I've got a device in my hand that's more powerful than my first 5 computers. So what they need and is to embrace it, number one. And then number two, the strong tech companies are bringing those like type people in and breaking down the communication from a tech speak to an operator speak. And when you look, for example, at this slide, a restaurant operator can understand this, right? Because it's solving a problem. So it's now the articulation has blended together. Whereas before you would have communication from a technology standpoint and a restaurateur standpoint, and there was no bridge. Now what we're seeing is turn and the bridge occur, and that's where the value is, right? Any restaurant or owner is going to say, so what's it going to cost me to deploy? How much more money can I make? And how efficient is it? And by the way, I need to know who my customer is, because I've learned in the last year to 2 years that the third parties aren't giving me my customer, and I don't own that data, and I can't market to that data, and I don't know what I don't know. Whereas a solution like this brings it all together in a manageable and a tolerable standpoint that an operator can now embrace it, and they can understand the communication and the articulation and say, all right, how does this affect my business? Well, this is universal to whether it's a QSR, a fast casual, fine dining operating. Everybody in our industry can understand how this flows from A to F. And kudos to Cognizant for making it understandable for our industry and really creating that bridge that I talk about. And I think that's what's important. And especially with the labor shortage that's going on, tech is so important. We don't have those extra bodies in the restaurants to be answering the phones and to be upselling. So when we talk about these different opportunities, whether it's digital and that digital experience and how efficient, and it's not just get there, order it, and move on, but really the sales cycle has evolved on the applications, right? The upsell. So Melissa, thank you for ordering. Last time you ordered breadsticks. Would you like to add the breadsticks to your order this go around, right? Or hey, it's your birthday, or there's some other data point. And then on the phone side, moving it away from the restaurant, because we've all called the restaurant and we've got the traditional, thank you for calling, can I take your order? Okay, you want X hamburger? Great, thank you, have a nice day, it'll be ready in 20 minutes, click, right? And we've lost all this opportunity to provide the hospitality. And that's what this industry is. It's the hospitality industry, not the hostility industry. So by moving these things offline and out of the restaurant, where they're extremely stressed, extremely focused on just getting and turning the food out, you're using partners in technology, whether it is a system like we're going to be talking about here, or your application. So the operator really needs to think about it. So if you're on the technology side, think about what that operator has been through in the last 18 months, because they haven't had the opportunity to sit at home, read the digest. They've more than likely had their staffs cut. They can't find people. They're working the line more now than they've ever have before. So if we walk in their shoes just a little bit, you're going to understand and be able to show your technology and how these winning solutions can come for the long term. And I think the operator now, again, they're not closed-minded about it. They're open to it, and they know they need to do it. So just taking a little bit of time, I think, is going to be a great help.
Yeah, no, thanks, Sam. I think that was very well articulated. So, look, I think we've talked about the impact that COVID created. We've talked about the challenges that it created. We've also talked about some potential solutions, right, in terms of technology interventions. But what do we want to get to, right? What's the outcome? What is it that what is a what is success, or what does good look like? How do you describe that in today's world? And I know, Sandeep, you wanna kick us off?
Yeah, sure. So think about it. If we step back, who is the end client, right? It's restaurant operator, owner. It is the experience end client, you and me, who goes ahead and makes the purchase. And it's the brand which runs the chain of restaurants or businesses. And what's important for them? You don't want to lose a customer, right? Number one, right? Given whatever goes on, you don't want to lose a customer either because you've put them on hold when they tried to reach you for 6 minutes, or they had a bad experience on your app, or because listen, you had it's the reality. It's funny, but it's a reality, right? That you had only 4 lines on a Saturday evening, and this was the 6th person who made the call, and he would never get through to the operator, right? The key outcomes you want to drive is that you want to stop any abandoned calls for any. You want it to make it easy for you and I to place that order and move on. Second one, that is a big one here, and it's not listed, so I will say it, right? So we've seen 80% reduction in our solution of abandoning calls or abandoning or loss, which leads to loss of revenue. Sam put it really nicely. You want an interaction where you pick up the phone and say, hey, Saurabh, this is Wednesday evening. Every Wednesday evening, you order your favorite XYZ. Should I place that in? And with that, would you like to try A, B, and XYZ product, which we've come up with? You want that personal connection that, hey, we know Saurabh, and this is what Saurabh does. And I don't think that can happen without data, technology, people coming together, right? We have live examples where we have increased revenue per order by 8 to 15% on historical. That's a huge number for this industry. And why it is a huge number is it is higher than even the digital channels, even the app-based ordering platforms or the third-party platforms, which validates, as we come out of this pandemic, which validates our innate need to provide hospitality. And again, I would quote what Sam said: we want to be hospitable, not hostile. We don't want to rush through things, right? And that's the core of it. The third thing that I'd highlight is, again, talent availability, labor shortage. You want your best people to giving the best experience in the best place they are. And within the restaurant, the best experience a server or a host can give is to the person who's there in person. And they are best equipped to handle that than answer a phone without knowing who's calling, without the support of data, without the support of the technology available there. So having said that, we've seen 19 to 20% cost savings. So we've actually taken that work out of the outlet and given higher revenue per order, reduced the abandoned calls, improved the experience, and given cost savings for it. So that, in a nutshell, I think is what the industry can gain out of adopting some of these things. And I think the pace of change is not going to stop. I think pace of change is not going to slow down. It's just going to keep accelerating from where we are now.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. I think let's look at the future now, right? Where do you see this going? Talk about one or two really innovative things that you've witnessed, which sort of tells you this is what the future would look like, right? Where do you? I know it's very hard to say what's going to happen in the next 6 months, but let's say if I do put you in a spot and ask you, Sam, what do you think? Where are we headed in the next couple of years? How do you say?
I see that the industry is going to pivot and they're going to change design, more focused on the off premises. We've already seen the multi-lane drive-through. I think we're going to continue to see more innovation in the drive-through, more pickup in the curbside. We're going to see the box shrink. We're going to see more outdoor seating built in. In the technology aspect, we're going to see things quicker, faster, and sharper be integrated. We're going to see more collaboration than we've ever seen before, not only with brands, but brands adopting and maximizing square foot revenue by adding dark kitchens, ghost kitchens, and other food within there. So I think we're going to see what we're calling the restaurant renaissance is going to occur. And I think in 5 years, we're going to look back and see how fast we moved in 5 years compared to the decade before COVID. And I think some of the things that were old are new again, because who would have imagined the QR code being as strong as it is today and being as widely used and accepted? We're going to see the return to phone service. I think we're going to see the return to call centers. People are going to want that communication. They're going to want to talk to somebody. I even think that potentially we'll see a virtual call center occur where people are zooming in to place their orders, not just dialing in. So if I had the Oracle sphere, I think people are going to continue to try more foods. We're going to be able to package more foods together or multi-unit over different platforms that are going to get delivered or used. And I think what's old is going to be new. So things that we may have counted out in 5 years are going to be back.
That's great, Sam. So, Melissa, what does your research suggest about this restaurant renaissance that Sam was talking about?
Yeah. So I love that, by the way, the restaurant renaissance. I look forward to that. The data point that you're seeing here is a topic that we've been talking about at HFS, which we're calling the fit for future measurements or metrics. So what that means is since the pandemic, we've found a shift in mentality from enterprises to not just focus on profitability and to focus on revenue and margins, while of course those are still the top most important things that you measure business success by. But I think most enterprises and food services / restaurants included have really dug deep to figure out, this existential question of why do we exist and what's important to us and what's our mission and values. And that includes a lot of things, it includes sustainability and, other ESG initiatives. It includes what you see basically here on the right, a lot of what we've touched upon. So the sense and respond, the rapid innovation and adaptation that we've seen, supply chain modernization and optimization. But the one I think I want to emphasize at the top is the top response for food services firms was the ability to build and sustain customer trust. And that I think is what the future of the restaurant industry probably leans upon and is going to be built upon, because the way that the pandemic built, sort of a fear in people, dining out, thus the off-premises shift. I think that's not going away overnight, and a lot of this stuff isn't going away overnight. The off-premise dining, just these habits that we've gotten into. In fact, today, Governor Baker in Massachusetts announced that they're keeping the outdoor dining permits through June of next year, of 2022, and the alcohol to go, and a lot of these things that have become more commonplace. So a lot of this stuff isn't going away, but I think, to Sam's earlier point, making safety more visible, that goes a long way for building customer trust for people who are still hesitant about dining out or even ordering from a restaurant, as well as the personalization aspects that lead to building loyalty and the cross-sell and upsell. And by the way, Sam, I always do go for the mozzarella sticks when they suggest it. It's brilliant what they've done, because they know what you've ordered, they know your behavior. And I think that as they continue to do this and build on some of these digital capabilities, that's really the essential ingredient for loyalty and then ultimately for success.
Oh, that's great, Melissa. So, fit for future is going to be more than just bottom line and top line, and it's going to revolve around customer and trust and safety. That's really compelling. Sandeep, what do you wish for? Next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, so I think a couple of things, and I'll talk from our professional services, service provider community a little bit, which has restaurants as clients, right? I think the change would be fairly rapid. people will, that apprehension that the industry's had in the past of this change will impact my customer, I think it's gone now, right? People want to experiment, saying, hey, if I can create new experiences, I will do that. And if I can create value for the end customer, I will do that. If I can own my own customer, rather be dependent on a third party for it, I will do that. And I think there will be rapid adoption of technology. I wish to, and most importantly, the business owners, and I go back to the operators and restaurant chain business owners, will be able to operate their business with more data and better visibility. They will be able to see what's happening in a particular restaurant at a particular time, which has immense value. Better transparency of information on operations and better knowledge of your own customer. I think those two, Saurabh, are going to happen. It's just about how fast, which player, which organization will adapt it. There is no way, because those who don't will be left behind on this.
Oh, that's great, Sandeep. I think we're pretty much out of time, and we've been getting quite a few questions, which I've asked the panelists already. But there's probably one question that we can still look at before we wrap up. And this question is: when you look at the SMB segment of the restaurant industry, many feel that they need to partner with a third-party marketplace app, right? I'm assuming it could be a DoorDash or whatever, and how do you do that, because these apps have, according to the questionnaire, predatory pricing, and there is war on data ownership, which occurs when you partner with these platforms, and we are dealing with an industry which has wafer thin margins for a long time, right? And how do you deal with this? We've all talked about ecosystem and collaboration, etc. But what are the rules of the game, right? How do you deal with that? And do you think the rich getting richer or the big getting bigger, and the smaller players, how do they survive and thrive? And maybe Sam, I'll start with you and go actually across the three of you to see what your stance is.
So it's a great question. And we have to remember that as operators, we're very angry at these players. But we're going to see consolidation over the next 5 years. And as hospitality professionals, we need to remember that there's a customer behind that order. And the reality is, would you have that customer or not have that customer? And you can't fight it and turn it off. But what you can do is, one, you can increase your pricing on those platforms. Now you're not locked into the same menu price. Number two, you can market against there. You can offer opportunity to come back to the restaurant as a regular takeout customer. And at the end of the day, let's think holistically about earning that customer's respect and loyalty and coming back. So yes, there isn't a lot of margin, but there are ways to increase the velocity of orders to make them more profitable by the increase in pricing. And we have to remember at all times, like I said in my opening, there's a customer behind that door that may not have tried you. So would you rather have that customer or not have that customer? And the industry is going to wash itself out very, very quickly. And there are a lot of people from the National Restaurant Association on down working on this issue. So let's take a deep breath and let's service as many customers as we can right now.
Melissa?
Yeah, I think it's challenging in particular for the SMB space, but I certainly agree with Sam. And I think that this is it's an important example actually of this food services ecosystem that we look at. So a lot of these players, you can call them tech platforms. They're in a sense, they're part of the logistics piece as well. And they're a big part of the data picture, right? So, and they're gathering information and feedback that's valuable to the restaurants that they can then use to improve services or to reach out to new customer sets, if they're able to play nice together and collaborate. And I don't pretend that that is going to be something that's easy, but it's a part of what's happening with the ecosystem right now. And it can be used, I think, to accelerate, a lot of these small businesses and their reach.
And last word, Sandeep.
Yeah, so what I can offer on that one is what I've seen some people do, right? There will be a time of coexistence, as we've been discussing, and we have to manage through that. But what I've seen is restaurant chains and franchisees, operators who are operating at a scale is open up their own online ordering platforms. They have adapted and partnered with organizations to adopt customer ordering platform on phones. And they've tried to move certain amount of volume of those transactions and split it across their platforms over time, right? Especially if it is pickup, curbside stuff, things like those. That allows, which does not have the last mile delivery problem that usually is the big challenge to get over it. But those are things that operators or the small business operator can consider doing. And as in the past, there have been roadblocks to entry into this because of huge technology investments. I don't think those exist anymore, right? Those barriers to entry into, you may think, oh my God, to build an online platform, it will take a huge amount of effort, time, and money. It does not exist anymore. I think the technology and the services have become what people call drip pricing these days, right? It's you can pay by use. So that's what I would like to offer Saurabh at this point in time. But it is a problem which is gonna evolve and I think solve in coming year or so, maybe. Mm-hmm.
Well, all right. Hey, thank you so much, everyone, for joining in this, and thank you, Sam, Sandeep, and Melissa, for sharing your insights. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think the restaurant renaissance, Sam, is upon us, and if my wife allows, I'm going to order in today. So, but thank you, everyone. We will post this recording on our website, and there were a few questions that we couldn't answer, but we'll get back to you offline on those. And have a good rest of your day or evening or afternoon. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.